Alright guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how I put on 25 kilos, not 25 pounds, 25 kilos, which is close to 55 pounds in 6 months while being fully natural. Now a lot of you are going to say, oh, I don't believe you, I don't think you're natural. But yes, I was. I was 16 to 17 years old at the time. And I put on a shit ton of weight and I put on a shit ton of strength. Now, before we get into that, I just want to say in the description, I'm interviewing people to find out if they're a good fit for Money Dojo. Send me a message. It's a great network for guys who want to come together, get fitter, get stronger, focus and learn how to make money online, and then just absolutely fucking conquer this new generation of people who don't know what the fuck to do. So if you're feeling a bit lost, just send me a message and I'll see if you're a good fit. We've also got the Telegram channel in the description. Join that. We're doing daily messages and voice notes, giving you guys some good value. Now, back to the video. Gaining weight, putting on weight, 25 kilos in 6 months. Now, that's a lot of weight. It is what I would say probably an unattainable goal for most, unless you're really willing to apply yourself and become obsessed with it. And that's what I did. I would kind of wake up, dream, sleep, think constantly about putting on weight and going to the gym. That was practically my only focus. I didn't really care about school. I was just like, gym, get bigger, get stronger. And that was it. But it worked. I put on the weight. And now how I did it. So we'll break it down into nutrition, into training, and into recovery. That's how I like to break things down. And we'll go through the steps I took to get to that size, get to that stage. So training, what was I doing? I was doing 6 days a week, 1 day rest of push-pull legs, which is practically the opposite of what I'm doing now. I'm now doing one push-pull leg split a week, 3 days. But at that point, I was doing it twice. So push-pull legs, rest, push-pull legs, and then repeat it again the next week. But there was no rest between that second push-pull legs and the start of the next week's cycle. So I would do 6 days on the bounce continually. Now, the time I was spending in the gym could have been up to 2 hours, some days, probably maybe even longer, depending on what the session was and depending on how often I was talking to people. But it was very long sessions, very intense. And what I was doing, I'd always start off with a compound movement, which would be barbell bench press, deadlifts or squat, depending on if it was push, pull or legs. And after that, I'd go into, so for chest, so I'd start off with barbell bench press. I'd then do an incline dumbbell press. And after that, I'd do a dumbbell shoulder press. And I know you're thinking, that's 3 pressing motions. That's a lot. Yes, it is. Then I'd go and do pec deck. After pec deck, I believe what I'd do was incline Smith machine. Yeah. And after the incline Smith machine, I'd go and do side delts. I do lat raises and onto triceps, which I'd then do rope extensions, bar push downs, and tricep dips. Now, for every one of these exercises, I was training very intensely, but I was also doing a ton of volume. I was doing 2, 3, 4 sets for a lot of these movements. On my compounds, I was doing 4, 5 sets. And on all the other movements, on the isolation movements, maybe only 2 or 3, but on everything else, it was probably 4 sets. And that's what I kind of just forced myself to grow. And that was just push day. That's just one workout, which would have taken me a couple of hours. Going on to pull day, so back, biceps, rear delts and traps, this is what I would have done. So I'd start off with deadlifts, which worked great. Then I'd go into bent over barbell rows as soon as I was done with the deadlifts. After that, I'd probably do some form of a cable row. which maybe a high cable row or a mid cable row, depending on what was available and what felt better. And then I do 2 variations of lat pull down. I do narrow grip, so arms out in front, elbows kind of at a right angle there. And then I do a really, really wide grip, as far out as I could go, and just focus on getting a really good contraction. So it's 2 very different movements. And then I'd finish off back with, there was a machine row there, which allowed me, it was a matrix machine. And I could go like this. It was a kind of like a wide grip machine row, we'll call it that. I loved that, and I would do a couple sets on that. And after doing that, I'd then go on to do shrugs, reverse pec deck, and then onto biceps, which was normally inclined barbell curls, spider curls, and hammer curls, all with dumbbells. So another 3 exercises for biceps. Yeah, and again, each one of those exercises, high intensity, pushing myself, and doing 3, 4, 5 working sets on every exercise. So really, really getting in the reps. Now, going to think about legs, how I was training that. I was doing barbell squats to start off with, Romanian deadlifts after barbell squats, and then leg extensions, hamstring curls, and calf raises. And that was all I had access to in that gym where I put on the majority of my weight, but that's all I really needed. I'd maybe do a little bit of cycling on the cardio machine, probably 5-10 minutes at the beginning of the session to warm up. But apart from that, squats, Romanian deadlifts, hamstring curls, seated, because that gets more of a stretch, and then seated leg extension as well. Worked amazing. And again, each one of those exercises, working intensely, pushing myself 3, 4, 5 sets. And that's what shot all my numbers up. So on my bench press, when I was 72 kilos, my bench press was probably around 90 kilos. Well, probably a bit less, 80 actually. Yeah. And then by the end of my bulk, when I was at 97 kilos, that 25 kilos later, I was then benching 140. So I'd put on 50 kilos to my bench. Remarkable, I know. Squat had gone from, I think I was really struggling with like 100, 120 for reps. And then I went to do 190 when I did, in the same week that I did my 140 bench. So massive, massive gains with the squat. That was huge for me. And then deadlift, I didn't push the deadlift as heavily. I got to 200 from doing like 160, but that was in a short period of time. And then I swapped out doing regular deadlifts for doing Romanian deadlifts, as I found them to be better on my knees. But the Romanian deadlifts I was doing with 140 for sets of 15, high reps, kind of really slow and controlled sort of thing, worked really well for me. So that was what my training was like. And so as I said, I did push-pull legs, have 1 rest day, and then repeat that push-pull legs. Now, you don't need to be going to the gym that much to put on 25 kilos a weight. I'd say 4 or 5 days a week is plenty. Go every other day. So one week you do 4 days, the other week you do 3 days. That's what I would say would work best. Now, going and looking at my nutrition, my diet, it was abysmal. It was terrible. What I was eating in a day was a lot, but it was terrible quality food. I'll go through it now. I was having a smoothie to start off the day, probably was around 2,000 calories. I had 2 scoops of Mass Gainer in there, Serious Mass by Optimum Nutrition, a scoop of protein powder, 2 scoops of oats, a lot of blue milk, a few Oreos, and a couple scoops of peanut butter, and also a banana, I believe, and an egg. Yeah. I don't know exactly how many calories that is, but it was a ridiculous amount. And I was eating that twice a day or once. I think I was having 1 shake like that a day, and then I had another shake in the evening, which was just protein powder, oats, milk. Yeah, and peanut butter. There was no mass gainer in that one. Then after I'd had my first smoothie, I'd have some form of bacon and noodles. This was a good combo for me, which I would then douse in soy sauce. So I'd have 2 packs of super noodles. And in that pan, I would then put a pack of lardons or half a pack of bacon, and I'd douse it in soy sauce and Worcester sauce, and I'd sit there and get that down. Around lunchtime, if I was at college, I'd probably have a couple of steak bakes from Co-op, from the local Co-op, from the local shop, a couple of sausage rolls, one or the other sort of thing, and then a 2-pinter of blue milk. And then at the end of the day, so when I got home before I went to the gym, I'd have a pack of tortellini pasta with sauce. I'd have that, and then after the gym, I'd come back, and then I'd have whatever my mum cooked for dinner. And then I'd have that second smoothie I mentioned earlier, and another one of those tortellini pasta things before I went to bed. So I'd say my daily eating was probably around 4,500, 5,000 maybe. I don't know. I never really counted. I just kind of ate whenever I could and as much as I could. I wasn't too obsessed with what I was putting in my body, which was a bad thing because I got really ill because of it. I was just in terrible health. But the main thing was I put on weight, so I saw the results. I was putting on probably every 3 days, I probably put on a pound. And then I'd say every week I probably put on 1.5 pounds. And then I'd have one day where I went down by about 1/4 pound, and then I went back up again, and then that process repeated. But the main thing, guys, is focusing on getting the food in, getting the training in, and pushing yourself so that you actually put on the weight. Now on to my recovery, what my sleep schedule and things looked like. It didn't. It was terrible. I was going to bed at probably midnight most nights because I played a lot of Xbox, and waking up at 6, so I was getting a very minimal amount of sleep. And yeah, that was probably about it. Shit sleep, barely did any stretching, never really did any cardio. I was in terrible health. It was not a very good thing to do, but if you want to put on weight, that's how you're going to do it. So if you want to do that, go ahead, see how it works.